Alan Henkin. He's co-owner, and he's also our beverage director, all things beverage from coffee to wine to beer. Basically, we're ending today with this 6-course beer dinner that we're doing. We're ending with the cheese course. And everybody knows and everybody talks about wine and cheese all the time. And now with the artisanal beer movement, it's left this wide open space for how cheese relates to beer. To stand up to the complexity of the beer, you know, we've chosen some pretty complex cheeses beyond like your standard mozzarella.
All these cheeses are sort of the most famous as far as being widely renowned throughout the culinary world, and also just as far as their quality level. They're all AOC protected, which means that they are government regulated cheeses. Everybody talks about wine and cheese. They have wine and cheese parties all the time. There's books, websites about how do you pair wine with cheese. But in my personal opinion, it's a little bit more challenging to find a perfect wine and cheese pairing than it is to find a perfect beer and cheese pairing. There's a couple of reasons behind this. One is that beer is carbonated. The carbonation of the beer lends itself to the pairing of, I think, food in general, but specifically cheese. You're talking about a very robust flavors when you're talking about cheese, and the carbonation of beer helps reset your palate and get you ready for the next bite. The other thing that I think beer has an advantage over wine as far as just being easier to pair is that we're talking about complementary flavors versus contrasting flavors. So wine is known for being high acid, can be very tart, and it also has a tannin structure from the grape skins. All these things can, if done perfectly, you can come up with an epic cheese and wine pairing. However, if they're even just a little bit off, it can cause a sort of a strange stew of flavors in your mouth. And so for those two reasons, I think beer comes in and makes things a little more accessible. So the beer that we're going to serve at our beer dinner is this Provisions Series Premier, which is a strong golden ale. It is an oak-aged strong golden. We're looking at about 10% alcohol, so it's got a slight cheesy note on the nose. Has that kind of slight lactic quality. It's also got a roundness, a butteriness, almost like a Chardonnay would have. The mouth structure and the feel of it is very luxurious and creamy. So now you're talking about all these things coming together as a complementary pairing for cheese. Just one beer with all three of these cheeses. We have the Pont l'Evêque, the Osso Arati, and the Roquefort. I've tried the Osso Arati and the Pont l'Evêque with this beer, and I already know they're spot on, so I'm not worried about it. I'm gonna try a little bit of this Roquefort and see how this goes with the Provisions Premier. It works really well. To be perfectly honest, it's bringing out fruit that I wouldn't have found in the beer before. It's an extremely salty, aggressive cheese. The beer is powerful enough to stand up to it, so it works. So what I'd like to do is try this same cheese with a wine. I'm gonna go with the Roquefort. I'm gonna try it first with some white wine. White wine does lend itself a little bit easier to cheese. I think it has to do with the serving temperature. Being a chilled beverage, I think it has less chance of conflicting with really strong flavors. We're talking about a dry white here. This is a Napa Valley Grenache Blanc 2008 from High Flyer. If I had to guess, I'm going to say this is going to struggle a little bit. Let's see how it goes. It's not a disaster, but honestly, the Provisions causes such a better marriage for me, personally. I'd like to try one other, which would be this Diaria. So this is a Bordeaux blend, a right bank Bordeaux blend from Tuscany. Definitely a very full-bodied red wine. It's definitely seen some oak. I think if you were going to go red, you'd want something robust to stand up to the Roquefort. Or you could go the opposite and contrast it and do something really light and fruity like a Gamay, a Beaujolais. It didn't work at all.
I don't know, I'm sitting over here and prepping and I'm thinking, you know, like, why doesn't that white wine work?
We have one beer
Yeah.
and 3 cheeses.
And 3 cheeses, yeah. That's what I'm talking about.
Right?
Yeah.
So for me, you're talking about a versatility that maybe does not exist in the wine world at all. Beer comes at it from almost like a melding or a cohesiveness.
Yeah.
So it's like marrying the flavors versus trying to cut them in half.
This is a conversation that we have every day at Pizzeria Basta. And for an event, you know, aside from this event that we're doing today, we have this conversation 4 times a week about any of our food. It's about you know, this pizzeria, our pizza, you know, qualities that are in our dough, lining it up, you know, and taking something that we serve every day like pizza with cheese on it and all this stuff with beer, and then coming down to a sophisticated cheese plate and a more artisanal beer. It's pretty simple. It comes back to simplicity.
And it all comes back to Basta, which is
enough.
It's a
yeah,
simple
it sounds like it
concept.
sells.